Welcome to Carol and Gary's See America Tour. Hello again, everyone. Today is Monday, September 24th, 2018. After visiting family in the Midwest for 5 weeks, Carol and I realized that it was still too early to head south for the winter, so we decided to visit Iowa. We drove to Dubuque, Iowa yesterday. Iowa became the 29th state to join the Union on December 28, 1846. Dubuque, the oldest town in Iowa, was incorporated in 1833 and named after its first permanent settler, Julian Dubuque. There were 58,500 residents in Dubuque in 2017. The first attraction that we visited in Dubuque was the National Mississippi River Museum and Aquarium. The National Mississippi River Museum and Aquarium has exhibits dealing with the culture and history of American rivers. Aquariums display giant catfish, sturgeons, ducks, frogs, turtles, stingrays, octopus, and river otters. Outside, the retired dredge boat William M. Black was on display. A dredge boat is used to deepen a river. Jets of water cut sand loose from the river bottom, then powerful suction pulls the sand and gravel into the pipeline like a vacuum cleaner. Inside the main building we saw an Indian dugout canoe that was made by Indians in Minnesota and paddled to Dubuque in the 1860s. We also read about freshwater clams being harvested on the Mississippi River before the invention of plastic. Clams were used to make buttons. The National Mississippi River Museum and Aquarium was very interesting. On Tuesday, September 25th, Carol and I visited Eagle Point Park. Eagle Point Park sits high on the bluffs along the Iowa side of the Mississippi River, overlooking Lock and Dam number 11. By 1918, navigation on the Mississippi River was virtually non-existent between St. Paul, Minnesota and St. Louis, Missouri. So Congress directed the U.S. Corps of Engineers to improve the river to allow barge traffic. The U.S. Corps of Engineers designed a system of 29 locks and dams. Each lock worked like an elevator, lifting or lowering boats from one water level to another. Here we are looking downstream towards Davenport, Iowa. The bridge connects Dubuque, Iowa to East Dubuque, Illinois. Here we are looking upstream toward Cassville, Wisconsin. This is the dam portion of Lock and Dam number 11. This is the lock portion of Lock and Dam number 11. Initially, when a boat or barge enters the lock while traveling upstream, the gate behind it would be open. The gate closes behind the boat to trap the water. Then the front gate opens to allow water to run in. After a boat has been raised, it exits the lock. Most barges are too long to be raised or lowered in a single section, so they are split into smaller sections, raised or lowered, and then reconnected before continuing on. On Wednesday, September 26th, Carol and I visited the Fenelon Place elevator. The Fenelon Place elevator is described as the world's shortest, steepest scenic railway. It is 296 feet long and rises 187 feet from one end to the other. In 1882, J.K. Graves, a former mayor and a former state senator, and then a banker, lived on top of the bluffs along the Mississippi River, but he worked at the bottom of the bluffs. Traveling in his horse and buggy, it took him a half an hour to get to work in the morning. At lunchtime, it took him half an hour to get home for lunch, and then another half hour to get back to work. After work, it took him another half hour to get home. But he only lived 2.5 blocks from the bank where he worked. As a traveler, he had seen incline railways in Europe and decided that a rail car would solve his problem. He petitioned the city for the right to build an elevator. The franchise was granted on June 5, 1882. A local engineer designed and built a cable car similar to those used in the Alps. The original cable car, which was built for Mr. Graves' private use, had a plain wooden building at the top of the hill that housed a coal-fired steam engine, boiler, and a winch. A wooden Swiss-style car was hauled up and down the hill on 2 rails by a hemp rope. Mr. Graves' cable car was operated for the first time in July 1882. After that, he had his gardener let him down in the morning, bring him up at noon, down after lunch, and then up again at the end of the day. Before long, the neighbors began meeting with him at the elevator asking for rides. On July 19, 1884, the elevator burned when the fire that was banked in the stove for the night was blown alive. Mr. Graves rebuilt the elevator, but he remembered how his neighbor showed up when he used the cable car, so he decided to open it to the public and charge 5 cents a ride. The elevator burned again in 1893, but because there was a recession, Mr. Graves could not afford to rebuild the cable car. The neighbors had come to depend on the elevator to get them to work, to church, to school, and to the market, so 10 neighbors banded together and formed the Fenelon Place Elevator Company. In 1977, the cable cars were completely rebuilt. After 84 years, the original gear drive was replaced by a modern gearbox with a DC motor. This is a view from the top of the bluffs looking down. Here we are riding down the elevator. Notice that a young girl is waiting to transport her bicycle up the hill when the elevator arrives. This is a picture of the empty elevator. There are 4 single seats on each side of the elevator car. This is a view of Dubuque as the elevator travels down. On a windy Thursday, September 27th, Carol and I visited the farm in Dyersville, Iowa, approximately 20 miles west of Dubuque, where the 1989 film Field of Dreams starring Kevin Costner was filmed. The farm is owned by local farmer Don Lansing and his wife Becky. Their family has owned this land for 110 years as of 2016. After a site was selected, filming was not scheduled to start until late June 1988. One of the most important fundamentals in the preparation of the farm for filming was growing corn. It was very important that the corn be at least shoulder high by the end of June. But that summer was one of the driest summers since the Dust Bowl of the early 1930s. The production company dammed the creek that runs through the farm to create a small reservoir, and then from the reservoir pumped water into the field for irrigation. The corn did so well that when it was time to film ball players walking in the corn, the stalks had grown too high. The production crew built a 12-inch platform hidden from the cameras between the corn rows to raise the actors up to the desired height as they walked. Filming took 15 weeks. The ball field remains today as it was in 1988, as does the house and grounds. Great efforts have been taken not to commercialize the property. They get approximately 65,000 visitors a year. Visitors come from as far away as Australia and New Zealand. On Friday, September 28th, Carol and I drove to LeClaire, Iowa, near Davenport, to see the facilities where the TV show American Pickers is filmed. Like Pawn Stars in Las Vegas, we felt that the facilities where American Pickers is supposedly filmed was a big letdown. We understand that the items that are picked by Mike and Frank are primarily sold online, but these two small buildings would have to be completely emptied before a film crew could set up. And the area where Danielle sits and works most of the time during the show seems to be non-existent. Except for the souvenirs on sale, most of the items were tagged as part of Mike's private collection, not for sale. When we got ready to leave, a large following of bikers and a classic car had arrived, so we had to wait for them so I didn't accidentally back over one of their bikes. And this wraps up our first week in Iowa. We will be leaving Sunday for Des Moines. If you are watching this video but have not yet subscribed, please do so to be notified of future videos, and feel free to share with your friends. Thanks for watching.